It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and starting off with a kind of maybe serious PSA. Stay away from the internet, kids. If you still want to hear this podcast, send us your credit card details, your social tax file numbers, and we will mail you curated cassette tapes of our podcast. Let's get on with the show. Hey friends and digital lovers, welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host Katie
and Doti.
Log off your life and subscribe to 3-egg omelets and seemingly innocent acquaintances. Investigate every twist and turn with us this week with Cilckbait. Woo-hoo-hoo. Wow, OT. I don't know if this qualifies as a Australian show, but apparently they filmed it here.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you don't come here for the Economist column in the For Your Reference curriculum. But I did start to wonder, countries around the world, but specifically Australia, how we would recover because there wasn't any sort of tourism. And I thought it was going to be the marvel, the movie making of it all. But it seems like people are moving their productions elsewhere now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a traveling circus of film productions around the world. But there you go. Cilckbait was filmed in Australia. I don't know if it classifies as Australia. But let's get into the general stats and information in regards to this show. This show premiered in August of 2021 on Netflix. Nice and tight, OT. We talk about nice and tight. Congrats to our American people because they've got some nice and tight TV series. 8. Yeah, 8. Not bad. It's not going to hurt you, but it will sploosh you just the same. Strap in, friends and lovers. Strap on. I know I don't say it all the time, and I hope you have been strapping on. And if you wait for instruction, you're welcome, you fucking sub.
You woke up on the side, eh?
I woke up on a boner and you should know so. Created by Tony Ayers and Christian White. We have starring Zoe Kazan, the big sick.
We love her.
We love. Who we love even more, Betty Gabriel.
Woo-hoo!
Betty Gabriel. Can we just say she's like the unofficial official infiltrator in the For Your Reference camps? Upgrade, which was I think our 3rd episode overall this podcast.
Yeah.
And also Get Out. So shout outs to Betty Gabriel. We love to see. I think she was always also in Defending Jacob as well. We just love seeing her as much as we can wherever we can see her. And we also have the entourage of all the entourages, Adrian Grenier. You know what? At this point, it might seem deliberate. I say it's an achievement. At over 100 episodes, we have not ever, I can recall, referenced Entourage at all.
Because you've not seen it, and I've tethered it in and out, and yeah, not sure.
Shout outs to our beloved pal as well as beloved patron Julio. He did comment he had an idea of me watching the show and laughing at how much I would hate it. And I feel like I kind of would. So maybe that's a challenge. Maybe that is going to be inevitable lack of character development. I don't know. Now we're in the Lindelof hunt of it all. I might dabble in Entourage. I might try. I know Jeremy Piven is an actual guy and he's been doing more serious roles, but I see him as Holt from the Cleveland Show. That is a Seth MacFarlane universe deep cut, friends and lovers. Okay, now that we've gone down the For Your Reference rabbit hole, if you're nasty, let's get into first impressions, OT. I don't think I knew, or I don't think we even watched a trailer for this show either. So I guess, what did you think about it? What did you think throughout it? And now that we've come out of it, how do you feel? Spoiler, splooshes, friends and lovers.
Went into it knowing nothing about the show. That's the way I like it.
Yep.
If you listen to our last episode, you can see how expectations just ruin everything. So went into this not knowing anything about this show.
Yep.
apart from a comment from Sani, I think.
Shout out to Book of Lies. Go and check out our collabs.
And wow, watching, I enjoyed it. I don't think it was the greatest thing I've ever watched, but it was nice. I like the ending just because that's the last person I thought it would have been.
Yeah, and it wasn't someone we were expecting, but the way that they built the intrigue was very good. I agree with you. I think I remember it more fondly than you do. I think we generally agree that we enjoyed the show, the mustache twirling, the twist and turning of it all was very enjoyable. But yeah, I think it's been a long time that I've watched a limited series and actually felt anxious and wanting to know what's going to happen. I also appreciate that it wasn't doing that classic sort of formulaic, and I guess this happens on shows that have a longer episode order where nothing really happens until the end of the episode and it's to like hook you in. Right?
Yeah, Netflix perfected that shit.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time when you're watching something, you just think it's everyone, especially me, because I don't, I have a complex and there's many of my complexes, but this one in particular, I don't like to appear dumb. So I just accuse everyone on the screen. Like I accuse Nick of killing himself as well. Like I just think everyone's a suspect. But if it's done well, it is very nice to go through and, for sure you think it's going to be someone. We already mentioned spoilers. Now that we know and we've come to the end of it, and we'll talk in specific detail, but now that we've come to the end of it and it's, as you said, no one that we were suspecting, I don't like the name of this. Like, obviously you don't call it catfish, but it's called clickbait. It's kind of like, in detail on our Patreon, we talked about Eddie Kathegi's TV show, not Adam Brody, Eddie Kathegi's TV show, Startup, where the name kind of takes away from the show. I think there was a lot of, nuts and bolts that made this 8 episodes nice and tight and splooshy muy caliente. But the title of it, when I think back to it, I'm just like, it means nothing.
I don't know. I kind of think it makes sense a bit.
Well, his profile isn't a clickbait. It's a catfish. It's not a clickbait.
Semantics. You've got to attract people for them to come in to be catfish.
Mate, when you get a Facebook message saying hot singles in your area, that's a catfish, not a clickbait. I'll be like Jin Yang from Silicon Valley. Clickbait, not clickbait.
Yep.
Go and check out our Silicon Valley episode, friends and lovers. It is tres comas splooshes all around.
Well, I think it just made sense for it. I don't think it's the worst title that could have thought of it. But wow. I think you guessed everyone.
Yeah, I did.
Apart from the person who actually did it.
Because she's so unassuming, right? She looks like the sort of lady that spends her Friday night knitting a teapot cozy, which I do feel like it is very on the mark, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing as well. Everyone wants to feel desirable. Everyone wants to feel attractive, but not everyone assumes an online identity to fulfill that gratification, right?
Yeah. Well, things escalated beyond her control, and I think she never intended it to be that bad or to veer off to that extent where it became fucking national news and to have Nick missing and killed in the process.
Well, either way, you're playing with fire, man.
You know what? All this can be laid on the feet of Nick. Just being fucking stupid.
Okay, yes, I can agree. I can agree with that. But if there are Nicks in the world, maybe they listen to the start of this episode and they're going to send us their credit card number. But yeah, there's a certain level of, cyber astuteness that people should have in regards to their security, right?
You know what? I'm not even talking about that. Fair enough, you give this old and assuming lady your details to...
With a teapot cozy?
Fine. Mate, after the day you've had, being captured and thinking you're going to die, you were released And the first thing you do is not go home, not go to the coppers.
Yeah.
It's to go to this old lady who's
confront
the whole fucking thing.
To confront her.
To confront her. To what end, man?
Yeah.
To what fucking end? That's why I couldn't just... You know what? Like, I enjoyed the movie. But when there's such a fucking massive qualm to have with this... I'm like, how can you be this stupid? You didn't make any fucking phone call. You didn't do anything. Nada. After the day's had. Like, that's unbelievable to me.
No, I think it would be more unbelievable if he wasn't a well-to-do white guy. Because that's a well-to-do white guy thing to do. Maybe. Anyone else would have gone back to their family.
Yeah, maybe. I'm speaking here as a black man, mate. And I know my first fucking action wouldn't be to go to the puppetry and all of this.
You're getting a limited episode, not a limited series, mate.
So true.
Well, I guess he saw her as not a threat, but also at the same time, you know, I'm sure there are many documentaries that exist, and I would be interested in watching it as well. To have insecurities is very normal, but to go out of your way to create an online persona to gain the gratification that you're not getting in your real life because you might be forever alone or because your husband likes to train himself rather than train you, right? Like, there's something to be said about that. And as far as I understand in the narrative, Nick knew that she had something to do with it, and she had online sort of personas using his identity. So even then, there were already some crumbling foundations that Dawn had to be like at least one little baby red flag to be like, don't fucking go to her house alone. Like son, like father, though, because Kai ended up there as well.
Or just call your farms, mate.
Yeah.
Like anyone. Literally anyone.
Like call and say, hey, I'm on my way to Dawn's house.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon. At something.
Because you know your family has been fucking missing you the whole day.
Yep.
This thing has been publicized all over.
Can we also acknowledge that Pia probably contributed to like 10% of the 5 million count? How many times? Like, you get it. The video is there. How many times do you have to load the page to see it?
To see how many views it was there.
And then she ran into her hospital ward and she was like, stop watching it, after she opens it 10 more times. Like, you're young enough to know. Unless the Brewer family were like off the grid and they were never raised by computers like the rest of us, I don't understand how she didn't get how the counter was working. Or maybe she thought it didn't work for her and it worked for everyone else. But that was very interesting. It was a very interesting, because I think a lot of the gotchas is just to get ya, right? But there were a lot of Hansel and Gretel morsels to enjoy along the way, including diverting suspicion to other characters. And just as we're generally talking about the overall story, who did you think it was? Because for a long time, I thought it was Matt.
I thought it was Ethan.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Those texts came in way too much. I was like, he looks suspicious as hell. What the hell did he do?
Yeah, I know we're going to talk specifically about characters, and I do have a couple of thoughts about Ethan, and we'll come to that. But I don't know if we're going to talk a lot about Matt, but I will say it now, just in case we don't have time. So he didn't end up being the catfisher. I think there was part of us that also thought he was assuming Nick's identity when he was in LA as well. So he wasn't the one that was doing all of the catfishing, but he was a fucking pervert. But the way that they had written in the show was, he's not the bad guy. He likes young girls, but oh well.
At least he didn't kill.
It was just the way they wrote it, and it's like you just shrug your shoulders and then you move along to the old perverts. Like, I don't. Like, fair enough. Like, power to however you want to write it. But it was so interesting because everything was so manicured and so deliberate in this show. And then they just clean their hands physically and literally of Matt and be like, okay, bye.
Well, they did have a throwaway comment at the end that one of the girls had decided to go forward and prosecute. So I guess that's their way of saying, He didn't get scot-free. At least there was some action taken.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt interesting.
I hear you.
It just felt interesting because until Dawn actually, well, her husband actually killed Nick, it kind of wasn't a problem on a community level. But Matt was going around doing some shady shit. So, like, if you were to take out your OT abacus, it definitely would have tipped more in that particular favor. But let's get into the show. I think we can just go from episode to episode. It kind of focuses on, like, the main sort of characters anyway. But yeah, feel free to go wherever you want, my love. But the first episode is called The Sister. I think it was good that we didn't try and read the episode names. I don't know if that would necessarily denote to who did it. Actually, no, I don't think so, because I don't think Dawn had an episode named after her, except for The Answer, which is the last episode. So really, everyone that was named in the show wasn't guilty at all. But it was still enjoyable. Like, sometimes when there's a misdirect and you don't know where you're going and everyone's a suspect, it can be a bit frustrating. But the show found a way to make it fresh and exciting. And at the end of every episode, you just feel like an idiot because you had been thinking it was this person all along. But let's talk about Pia. Did you think it was her at ever any moment?
Nope. She loved him too much.
Too much. Yeah.
Like, they explained their relationship, that they're closer than the average brother and sister. I was like, yeah, cool, I see that.
Yeah.
And in no point did I think that she had anything to do with it. Zero.
Yeah, she cared so much and she cared a lot. And then later on, we find out when she's, sharing with her sister-in-law, Sophie, that he found their father. So that's not something that he would ever joke about. So, and even to go through such a traumatic event, to be so young, to go through that together, they have such an unbreakable bond. So it wasn't necessarily that she was guilty, but there was definitely moments where, she was out clubbing and she blacked out a bit, and we were trying to figure out what might have happened between those moments as well. If anything, it seemed like something would have happened to Pia, but it happened to Nick, the perfect husband with the perfect family.
Yeah, I just didn't think at any point that it was her. I feel like she almost believed that Nick had done all these things up until the suicide thing, where Nick was like, do it then, kill yourself, I don't care.
Yeah.
And then she was like, okay, this is definitely not Nick. And once that was, once she found that out, and she always followed through. She always gave her all to try and find out the truth. And if, when Sophie wasn't happy that Ethan was being involved with Pia and trying to find out the truth, I was like, come on now, At what point are you just going to sit back and believe all these things? Because I don't think I would for you. I'd be fucking hard, but I don't think I'd sit there thinking, mate, you're such a creeper.
I feel like you just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Even if you were doing it in a hypothetical situation.
I didn't say it was hypothetical, mate.
The For Your Reference tapes. And she kind of becomes a very constant, very forefront, annoying presence, I would say. But it is understandable because she loves her brother. It was interesting, especially establishing the dynamic between Pia and Sophie, because Sophie was a bit... I wouldn't say she was quick to believe the signs that Nick was holding, but it also seemed like she wasn't as invested to investigate it. And I guess there's a part of it where, there's a lot of healing and a lot of grieving that needs to happen. But, later on when we come to find the infidelities, that becomes a whole different sort of story. But it was interesting to see their sort of dynamic and how Pia was always in the ring, always trying to find what happened. And I think it was definitely a good way to establish the show as well.
100% agree. I think when you do get to Sophie, I think we'll talk about more of her nonchalanceness to pursue this as vigorous as Pia did, or even show as much emotion as she did.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move into the second episode called The Detective.
He was all about his career, wasn't he?
But Roshan got like, I don't even understand why we were focusing on him so much. I don't even understand how, first of all, he got a title episode and he was the second focus of this 8 episodes. I guess that was a way to move the story along because there's a lot of evidence finding in this episode. But it is interesting that, first of all, they chose to have a focus on Roshan. And second of all, he was the second episode of this. Shout outs to OT because you clocked that he was the one on the dating app. That she was texting. I'm terrible. Like, unless I actually know who the actors are or everyone's walking around with name tags, I don't remember. I don't remember faces. Everyone looks like Kelsey Grammer to me. So I just don't.
Are you the polka dot man?
I am. Is that a Suicide Squad reference? Yeah. Go and listen to our Suicide Squad episode, friends and lovers. It's very fun. And Ben from Film Busters, if you are listening, the Suicide Squad of 2021 is the brightest bushel in your life, you motherfucker. That is Katie, the detective. Episode 2 on For Your Reference. But yeah, going back to Roshan, we saw a bit more about his family life as well.
Yeah.
Why? It's nice to have representation and like different cultures, but he really, in the grand scheme of it all, he didn't really offer anything because
he played a part in finding the body. But
did he find the body or did he use the app?
He used the app, something that the police wouldn't do. Like
did he find the
detectives were too stubborn to use technology? Because, hey, I prefer coloring on my map manually.
Well, we're coloring of a different representation, thank you. Did he find the voicemail or did Pia offer it to him? And that was really frustrating to me about Roshan. He bulldozed his way into the investigation because I think he was part of the missing persons unit. He wasn't part of homicide, right? He bulldozed, strong-armed, man-armed himself into the homicide unit, having nothing to do with anything. And I was like, oh, maybe this is him. Like, you know, sometimes the killers like to go and be part of the investigation as much as possible because we didn't know anything at this point in episode 2. But no, he was just a man with a lot of confidence. And apparently all you need to be is a man with a lot of confidence to get away in this world.
Mate, if you're not going to play that game to climb that corporate ladder, you'll never go anywhere. Climb that ladder, mate.
Yeah, but what you don't know, for women, the corporate ladders have dicks on them. It's like a Super Mario game and you catapult yourself up by the different dicks.
Get out of the way!
But I did, it's a tongue-in-cheek, all the cheeks mention representation, but it's true. Sometimes you want to see representation, but also, unfortunately, representation also means mediocre, incompetent people as well, because that's what he was.
Nah, you're being too harsh.
He was of no value, sir.
He found the body.
Off the app.
But people were not looking for him on the app. The cops aren't looking, at least officially.
To be fair, shout outs to the parents of those 5 teenagers that finally got 20 seconds on a Netflix series. They're the real champions here because those kids are the ones that found the body, not him.
Well, he was there. He was there. Like, you can say, and I agree with you, like, he wasn't as useful as he was brought out to be.
If you agree with me, why do you keep talking then? Why do you have to defend terrible men?
To such a level that it feels like he didn't bring any sort of worth at all.
He was...
That's why I have to stand up for the poor.
He was Roshan to conclusions.
Wow.
He was.
The one's getting to your head, eh?
The corporate ladder catapults with dicks. That's what I will say.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the app, GeoNick, that was created by that teenage kid that had a boner all over for Pia. Right? How do we feel about that kid?
It was so fucking obvious. He had fucking feelings. And Pia kept on touching him on his fucking knee. And it was innocent probably for her, but shit, man. He's a horny teenager. He thought that was pretty much a relationship.
Horny teenagers and mediocre corporate men. OT, an autobiography. Yeah, he was a bit like, I don't know, but was there any point that you suspected it could have been him?
Nah.
Okay.
He was too far removed.
You reckon?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I guess there are so many threads that you can pull in regards to the characters that are introduced into this show. And it really is not knowing who and when and what and why. Speaking of, let's move on to the third episode, The Wife. The Wife.
Well, man, I thought Sophie had something to do with it because of her nonchalance reaction to everything.
But it's kind of always got to be the spouse, right?
Yeah.
We've watched Staircase.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Firth has been casted in a film about it, and I'm very
really?
excited. It's been a while since I've mentioned Colin Firth. I feel like I'm cheating on him.
Wow.
With you, sir.
He's into throttling, so it's all right.
Well, positions are open, sir.
People respond to situations so differently.
True.
It's mind-boggling because Sophie had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But from the outside looking in, you'd be like, hey, why is this woman not crying? Why is this woman so held up? Why is she not reacting as Pia would? Why is she not being showing emotions to any level? And all of that can be answered quite easily, but when you're outside looking in, you're like, man, it has to be her.
Yeah.
You have to question her because who else?
But that's exactly it. I think one of the first sort of inklings where we're like, something is amiss here was when she was doing the press conference, or at least like the televised, sort of news update outside of her porch. She just came off really cold and unfeeling. And I guess you could put that down to shock. And like you said, people react differently to different situations. But man, she did not seem like she was in want of a husband at that moment.
No, because I think, and this is where Pia raised such a good point. She subconsciously wanted it so bad for Nick
to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then her affair isn't as bad.
Yeah.
Her stepping out isn't as bad. And she's not the bad person in the relationship anymore.
Yeah, it was just a tit for tat, even though she didn't know about the tit. Interesting. Unfortunately, in the worlds of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, where unfortunately Johnny Depp, because of the view of, women are the fairer sex and they can never really hurt men. It is unfortunate that Johnny Depp got the treatment he did. He got dropped from roles, unlike Amber Heard. Unfortunately, I am always default believe women, or actually default believe the victim/survivors. I'm always default that. So when I guess getting back to a lighter note, when we saw Nick holding up the signs saying, I abuse women, I'm a murderer, I'm like, why is everyone trying to look for him? Can we just establish that he didn't fucking hurt women? I was more worried about the theoretical women in the boards that he was holding than even caring about whether he's still alive.
Wow. Because that's weird. I think when they were showing up the boards and the people that knew him knew that, wait, that's not Nick. But they had a doubt. Like, it wasn't, other than Pia, everyone was like questioning themselves after a bit.
Like, how much do I really know him?
Yeah, which is insane, man.
Well, it's kind of like how hearsay accounts aren't as, formidable in a court of law, or like eyewitness accounts, because they're all kind of subjective, right? Because if you watch any true crime documentary and they talk about the biggest high profile serial killers, you will get interviews of neighbors and people in the community saying, oh, that person was such a nice guy. Profile, usually it's a young white male. But in any case, that particular person was a nice person. You know what I mean? So you can't really go off those sort of accounts anyway.
True, but people believed that Nick was bad after those idiots on the dating profile started coming up saying, we had a relationship with Nick for X amount of time and he was the best until he wasn't. And I'm like, cool. And then at the end, for it to be revealed that none of them actually fucking saw, met, had Nick, I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. What was this we've watched?
Okay, can I give potentially an olive branch to the women that were...
You can give all the olive branches you want, mate. But don't come fucking forward when you've not seen, heard this guy at all.
What if they're cold pressed extra virgin olive oil branches?
It's mad, man. It's mad.
I know, but referencing a callback earlier, I mentioned there's got to be something about people that create these sort of profiles. On the other hand, there's got to be people that try and seek a connection and they haven't officially met them. I can't remember. I think this was a Patreon. Was a Patreon, but I talked about, no, it was us talking about Sound of Metal. So if you want to hear us talk about Sound of Metal for 15 to 20 minutes, go and check out, our Ref Plus exclusive Patreon show. But we had a nice little tit for tat on there. And I think I kept my tits and you kept your tat in regards to that. But we were talking about love. And what I said in that was, just because it wasn't a physical, tangible love doesn't mean that they don't think that that was love. So that's what I'm saying.
They can think that is love all they want, but in the cold, hard truth of it, they need to be asked the most basic of questions. From the reporters to the coppers, no one bothered asking, have you seen this guy? Have you talked to this guy? Have you physically seen him? Video, whatever, anything. Nada. Everyone just assumed, hey, we're in a relationship with this guy. Of course they've met. They met online. Of course they've met physically. Of course he's seen him on the video or at least talked to them. They're all fucking assumptions. And this is where my qualms come in again.
Mm-hmm.
At what level of incompetence do you have the reporters and the coppers to be when these questions don't come up and are only raised by a fucking teenager?
Order in the snarky Oten Sorkin. A few good men caught.
I prefer a good whodunit when the foundations are there.
Mm.
When you know that us being misled isn't just by mere guise of poor writing. Make the characters competent, and then when it comes to the fucking reveal, and let them us being like, oh, it's this lady that did it, then you're like, oh, fucking shit, I didn't see that. But when you have missed fucking redirects everywhere and us thinking that this guy's fucking guilty and the characters are supposed to be looking at after this in picking it off from a sort of haystack sort of detail level, they don't do shit. Like the most fundamental questions of anything. You met online. Cool. You met on Snooker. Did you see this guy?
Oh,
no
that's
one fucking dead asked that.
That's a casual TV show reference.
Like, mate, that's just and you can say to the levels of them loving it and believing whatever they want to believe. That's all right. But those coppers weren't in love with Nick.
Yeah.
Those reporters weren't in love with Nick. Ask the goddamn question. So that when we come to the reveal, it's fully worth it. And we don't feel like he cheated because the poor fucking writer didn't think that anyone else would ask that question other than a 14-year-old kid. I'm assuming Ethan was 14 or whatever fucking age he was.
Well, what I'm saying, getting back to where we were, I was getting a few good men sort of references. Go and check out our episode on that, Friends and Lovers. But my point that I was making before you started grandstanding in the court was Emma Beasley. I was just saying because at some point she knew it wasn't real. Like whether she, pushed it to the recesses of her mind, she knew it wasn't real because who the fuck photoshops a photo and sends it as if it looks like they're on holiday? Like that's a different level of delusion. I would say that's really early periphery delusion at that level because I don't know if it was framed as this is what it will look like when we go to the beach, but who the fuck said like this is what we look like when, like I never photoshopped a photo to you and said this is what it look like when we're gonna go and see a kangaroo. Like you wait until you have moments together physically to have those moments. Like that doesn't make sense. But what I'm saying on a human level, it is sad that she felt like she needed to continue the facade. It's not correct. The journalists, the detectives, but we've already established Roshan was useless. He was Roshan to conclusions. Thank you very much. There's no need for input there. I just think it's sad. I think it's sad. And, it's the reason why love scams are so lucrative around the world.
Fair enough. Like, I'm not blaming Emma. The onus is on her. The onus is on the people who are supposed to look after it. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we said, I think it was in the Patreon app, was that you can't be smart in a vacuum. But she barely was smart enough, mate, but she was able to trick everyone because no one would ask the fucking fundamental question. The easiest question to ask.
Yeah, I think the thing is when you're watching it with essentially wool over your eyes, when you don't know what's going to happen and you're just enjoying the show as it unfolds, it works, but it doesn't work on a rewatch because all of the questions that you're saying now, we're very clear and we're very aware of it. So it's not something that will fly on a second watch, which I agree with you. But I also don't intend to watch this show again.
Fair enough.
No, that's not a dig. Like, I enjoyed the show for what it was, but I'm not going to watch it again. Like, the thrills were the thrills. Before we continue along in the episode, speaking of thrills, I want to talk about Ben Park. Actor Abraham Lim, would you believe, is Kenji from The Boys. The love sausage of it all, can you believe? Such a lovely, sweet, innocent character. And then we have him as a motherfucker journalist here.
Yeah, man, bloody hell. He has issues.
He is the representation of bad media.
When I said climb that ladder, he took Roshan to a different level.
He climbed the corporate ladder with catapulting dicks.
Oh man, he grabbed onto those dicks. He didn't care. Wow. Like, there's a problem when your husband or your boyfriend thought it was all for laughs or just games. And he was like, mate, is this... Like, he was taken aback.
Yeah.
By all of it.
Yeah. He thought he had a Bonnie and Clyde situation.
Yeah. It's mad.
Well, if you remove the blinkers of morality and ethics, you can get very far in life, right? There's an Australian series we're currently watching at the moment called The Newsreader, and it's set in Australia, and it's obviously about newsrooms. And we're currently up to the point where they're trying to get an interview from Lindy Chamberlain, I guess most famously known as Dingo Ate My Baby. But the moral sort of quandary that they're having currently on the show is that they want to get the interview. They want to be not just one to get the interview, they want to get an exclusive interview. And this is where you start to see the genesis of degradation in morality or ethics in journalism, because the network executive heads are offering to pay money for the interview. And that's exactly kind of what Ben Park is venturing in, because everyone's playing a good game. Everyone's navigating with the same naive morality that they were brought up with, until a vindictive motherfucker comes along and decides to pay for interviews, or until Ben Park breaks into the apartment and steals the phone. Like, things don't play fair because there are vindictive motherfuckers out there, and that was Ben Park.
Yeah, man, I really didn't like him in this.
He broke bad.
Yeah, I don't think there's any saving grace about him at all.
No, and it's sad when he was talking to his partner, and it was very clear. The veneer, albeit very thin, dissipated, because he's like, all I have is my job. If I don't risk everything, then what do I have? And it's like, you're looking at your beautiful partner right there. Like, you have more than your job. And also he went under the guise of a delivery person as well, and he was taking photos in the house. See, representation matters, even vindictive reporters. So, Sophie. She was knocking some boots. She felt away. And I guess the way it was introduced, it was just her cheating. And then later on, potentially Nick was cheating, and then we find out he didn't. First of all, the man is the martyr in this show. Nick was, from what we can see now that we're at the end of the show, he was a faithful, devoted husband who made 3 egg omelets for his 2 sons and was so attentive in his job at the volleyball team. And he was a well-loved community member. And then when he went and got himself killed by some lonely lady masquerading as him in the night. He really got the raw deal here.
He did. He really did. And it all boils down to stupidity.
Well, naivete.
And stupidity.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Was there any sort of redeeming qualities about Sophie? Because at the start of the series, I was saying it will take a lot for me to not like Sophie because I love Betty Gabriel.
She didn't do anything to warrant like a saving grace for me. It's more that she just didn't bother. And I didn't bother trying to find anything to like about her in this.
Very cold.
Yeah, very cold, and I just didn't connect with her as much as I thought I would.
Yeah.
And watching her with the relationship with the kids, man, like got angry when Ethan was outside. She got angry with the mom.
Yeah.
How the hell did you let Ethan stand outside of the office to hear that I cheated on my husband? Mate, that is not even the fucking issue.
Yeah, because when you love someone, you just don't treat them bad.
Yeah, like insane.
Because I think there was a part of her that just wanted to move forward so she could heal because she had so much guilt. Not only did she cheat on her husband, but her husband is dead. Like, there's nothing she can do to make the situation better because he gone. Like, he's not coming back. He's Bone Thugs Harmony Crossroads. So there was definitely that element to that, but it meant that she didn't have any emotion to give for her sons, and her sons were trying to figure out what's going on as well.
Yeah, I think the best thing about her is her relationship with Pierre grew. You know, from the start we see that they can't really stand each other, and at the end of it, they're like, you know what, we're in this together.
But I hate that because she was so judgy towards Pierre when Pierre was, in all accounts, more innocent than she was.
Yep.
But it's always those ones you need to look out for. I guess her man on the side was a bit aggressive.
He has issues. I think this is where like I have fucking problem with writing. Like they wanted to direct you into one direction so much so that you don't think of the actual answer.
Yeah.
Now they made this guy super aggro.
Yeah, aggressive.
And for what?
It's like, calm down, bro. Like he fought.
He had something to hide, and I'm like, what are you hiding?
He fought Nick at the bar, which is just ugga toxic masculinity, fine. But then he was trying to attack her too. And I'm like, what's going on here? What's really going on here?
We don't hear from him at all we don't hear from him at all.
Yeah.
Once he's arrested. I'm like, what was that for?
What was the point? And then I guess you start to realize that he had nothing to do with it because we're focusing on something else.
Oh, man.
It was Jennifer Hudson's spotlight. Like the spotlight was just moving around, not the Mark Ruffalo spotlight.
Oh yeah, you don't want that spotlight.
No, but we will be covering that film very shortly in the near future, friends and lovers. Let's move on to the next episode, The Mistress. We've kind of talked about Emma already. Did you ever think it was her?
No, I just thought she just wanted to be around all that.
Like, it wasn't her fault that she fell in love with a man that happened to have a whole family, a whole life. So there was a lot of feeling sorry for her. And then when she got attacked when she was leaving, you kind of realized that she had nothing about it and she was the innocent sort of party in it. I guess that's just how it lands. It was interesting having Sophie's episode and Emma's episode back to back because we have, Emma as we don't know her. She's just the random lady that Sophie sees outside of her window, right? And in Sophie's episode, she's just this mysterious figure that pops out of nowhere that follows her. And it's very unsettling. And Sophie's going through so much, right? So it's played off as, Sophie standing her ground and standing up for herself. But when we get to the Mistress episode, Sophie comes off so aggressive.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that Judge Judy, there's two different truths and somewhere in between is the real truth.
Yep.
Because that was played very differently from both of their perspectives.
Yeah, I did feel for her, like, especially when seeing how she cared. She really did. But being catfished and all, it's super sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. And, we just need to be better as a society. We need to know how to just do our due diligence and protect your hearts, people.
Yes. Oh,
It's crazy
absolutely.
out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like there are talks in Australia of having legislation against catfishing. So it's a thing that's being talked about. I'm not sure how you police that, though.
Well, I think it's quite hard if I guess if you want to get super political, it's hard when you don't have written legislation about it. It's just like, don't do the cybercrime, it's bad. Like if you can easily flash a tit, hide your face, and get hundreds of dollars of cash, you would. Don't worry about it, friends and lovers. Don't look it up. But if you want to go into that detail, it's definitely there. But so much crimes that are committed online, the law is such a big, slow moving bureaucratic machine that it hasn't really updated itself to account for that.
But not when it comes to abortions.
Ayo, that's some real unfortunate, not just Texas, all around the world truth. Women's bodies are women's bodies, you motherfuckers, friends and lovers. And that's it. The reporter, we've already talked about Ben Park. I think the main thing to take out of this was we were introduced to another victim, Maggie Oxley, and the difference in this being that she committed suicide. And you mentioned earlier that Pia believed that it wasn't Nick at all. But it was interesting because the next episode is called The Brother, and that's where we're introduced to Simon.
He's the one that I've really felt for in this show.
Yeah.
More than Sophie, more than Pia. He went through it.
Yeah.
Because we got to see how they had this relationship with the sister. He was always there for her.
Yeah.
She had issues, but he was always supportive.
Drop everything to be there for her.
The fact that the sister called him.
Yeah.
Well, she was dying.
Yeah.
And he couldn't do anything about it.
Yep.
I do not blame him for trying to go and fucking kill Nick. Because I think any decent person would have had the same fucking reaction.
It's interesting that he was rational enough to not follow through with it.
Because he had to. Yeah, and
how do you hold that anger back?
There's nothing wrong with him in this.
Yeah, no.
He's a fucking angel.
Are you going to tell me all the men are victims in this? Is that what you're telling me?
Yup. I'm telling you there's an agenda.
Well, based on the accounts presented, correct. There are many victims in this, and a lot of them do happen to be the male characters.
Oh wow, yeah. I really felt so. I think that's the one episode that I really had my emotions going.
Yeah, and what was his friend Daryl? Daryl was the loose cannon.
Yeah, you can tell he's a psycho.
Like, you barely needed to prompt him to help you in this mission.
I think it was more his idea than anything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You better go get him, mate.
Yeah. They probably met through Craigslist, just like ready to commit a crime, a vicious, vicious crime. But yeah, Simon held a lot of the emotional sort of resonance in this show, and it happened quite late, but given the way that the story unraveled, it made sense that we didn't get to meet him until episode 6. But it's sad. It was definitely a sad situation to see Simon go through that and want to be there for Maggie, and it just didn't work out. And then Pia had a whole, maybe not Jonathan Wilkinson, maybe more like Bob Odenkirk, nobody. She had a little fight sequence with Daryl.
Yeah.
I think it was funny because they both like cyber stalked each other, so they both knew who each other looked like. So that was an interesting episode, and it was sad as well. You wanted Simon to be able to get some sort of redemption, some sort of avengement for what he had gone through, but unfortunately there's no real closure there.
No, life sucks.
Life sucks. Live life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, friends and lovers. Episode 7, The Sun. I don't know. Do you think, looking back at it, it was Ethan or Kai? I think it was Ethan because a lot of the focus was on him. Okay, so I said we'll come to it at the start of the episode, and now we're talking about Ethan. This kid is younger than us, right? As much as OT said that Bend It Like Beckham was a childhood classic for him.
It was.
I don't know what calculator you have, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't in your childhood that Bend It Like Beckham came out. Go and check out the episode, friends and lovers, by the way. But the point I'm making is Ethan is younger than us, so I guess by mathematics he would be classified as Gen Z, the TikToker kids of it all. All he knew growing up was technology. Therefore, I don't believe this is kind of like a Steve Buscemi 30 Rock, how do you do fellow kids writing approach. I don't believe a kid like Ethan wouldn't have at least video called with this person. I don't believe Ethan wouldn't have looked up all of the available possible details. The same way Pia was looking up all of the details, the same way Simon and Daryl were looking up all of the details, Ethan had all of the resources in order to be able to learn about, his secret text lover, and he didn't. So I think that's a writing point of view. I don't get that.
Yeah, well, but at least he made an effort into finding out who that was. And going out of his way to go there.
Yeah.
So it's not like he just sat back and...
Actually, that's the second time. No, Kai was the one that went to go meet. But still, he has very dangerous behavior and he must have got it from Nick.
For sure.
So Ethan meets Allison and Allison gets really pissed off that he would even turn up there. But I think it's healthy that Ethan was a bit cautious about it, given the timing of things and the way Allison wanted to know every single detail. But we come to find that she's very lonely and she's anxious. So she's not out in the world. So she wants to find excitement, right? Do you think they end up a couple?
Yup, I think so.
I don't think I need to see it. I think just the thought of it is enough for me.
Are you sure you don't want a season 2 for this?
No thanks. We're already getting season 3 of You, so
Woohoo!
You're excited, aren't you?
I am stoked.
If I remember correctly, we did You after we did Succession, and that's an embarrassing stain.
Yeah, and he's coming out soon, so we'll probably do it even before the next season of Succession. So there you have it, folks.
Find ways to celebrate aside from wanking off in sidewalks, friends and lovers. Yeah, but I don't know. Ethan was a bit naive. We also have the altercation that Kai had defending. It was kind of himself because Ethan walked away, so he didn't necessarily had anything to do about it. But Kai, I don't know. It's interesting because, there's a lot of conversation on, protecting young black men. And even though it's not fair, how to conduct yourself around authorities and that sort of thing. It was interesting that, Ethan, especially Kai, weren't explained that they didn't have that discussion. Because there were little inklings of Sophie saying, I don't want to have to go through with this. Let's move to another town. But the way Kai was moving and operating, it was as if he didn't realize that, unfortunately, the actions he takes isn't taken as lightly as others. Like the white kid's the one that started it, right? I'm pretty sure it was some stupid comment about his mum being slutty or something, right? So, the optics of it aren't great, but the reality of it fits.
I didn't think they had to learn anything about that. I think it was too late. I think a lot of those are just assumptions on the mother's part that they'll get to learn and understand these social norms for themselves. But, if you don't teach them, how else are they supposed to learn?
True. Very true. Okay, let's move on to the last episode called The Answer. Somewhere in between, we learn about Matt and his disgusting ways. And it wasn't satisfying enough for me. I wanted more focus on him being gross and him getting his comeuppance. But anyway, we get to the end of the show. How do you feel about Ed's, it's not even loyalty, it's his fealty to Dawn?
It's commendable. Like, well, my wife loves this, so I might as well.
Yikes.
If it makes her happy, who am I? Well, I think killing Nick was just rush of the blood stuff that he probably, having given it a little bit of thought, wouldn't have done it because it was still controllable to a point. But wow, yeah, he fully jumped into the bandwagon of being bad quite quickly.
Yeah.
And they didn't even show sort of any remorse, like, oh, kill someone. This will affect me because I've taken a human life. But, Yep.
But I don't think Ed's the problem. It's Dawn. She created this whole situation and Ed was just providing a solution for it. You don't get to choose how something gets solved, even keeping you from jail, because you're the one that made the mess and you're not willing to clean the mess and someone needs to, and that was Ed.
But don't you find it weird that this guy kills someone? Doesn't affect them. And then when Kai goes to them, they're like, man, we're prepared to do this. Let's kill this kid as well. Like, Jesus. These were meant to be ordinary folks just going about their days.
Well,
they turn out into some super killers.
You've shared a lot of your qualms in regards to the show, and this is not necessarily a foundational qualm, but this was a frustrating, tangible qualm that I had, particularly with this last episode, because I don't know if they were trying to bring like class into it, but we could see that Nick and Sophie were living quite well for themselves. They weren't necessarily succession money, but they were living well in a nice, newly furnished house with their 2 kids. Their kids go to a good school. And then you see Ed and Dawn, and they make it very clear that they couldn't have children. Not like they chose to be childless, but it just didn't work out in the cards for them. And I don't know, I don't like how they had the emphasis that he was a Costco manager, as if that's something to say that he's not ambitious or he doesn't strive for anything. I guess I also want to make it clear, like the Christian Bale of it all, you can have really well-adjusted, attractive, social people that want to fuck people up as well. Like, it's not just the older lady that's lonely from her husband with a teapot cozy telling people to kill themselves.
And you know what, folks? I think there's a social issue as well that we need to address. And movies need to address as well. When we have this old couple that they seem like they wanted to have a family, but one or another, be it biological or anything, they couldn't. Mate, there are thousands of kids struggling.
Can we talk about it?
The thousands.
Can we talk about it?
Adopt a kid, man.
Can
doesn't need to come out of your fucking crotch for you to care about it.
Yeah.
For you to have a family.
Yeah.
Mate, don't paint them as if, don't come at me telling me, oh, this lonely couple, old couple, oh, they're struggling, they don't even have anything to hold on to because they couldn't spit one out. Mate, there are options.
Yeah.
Kids are out there in a dozen struggling and suffering. If you want to help, if you want a family, there are definitely ways, man. There are fucking ways.
Oh, absolutely.
So I didn't feel sorry, because if you didn't think that, if you really needed that family, you'd get a kid.
I don't even know what my role is in this podcast, because that was so beautifully said. And I agree with everything. I don't know what else I can offer in regards to that, aside to say, you know, we like to think we're very progressive, but we're not. If we're still getting stories where, you know, couples don't have kids, are lonely, and it's a dramatic reason that they don't have kids, then we're not as progressive as we think.
No, we're not. And I'm tired of seeing that shit in movies, because it's annoying and it's a disservice to every kid that's trying to find a family out there and is just alone.
On a lighter note, if you can say your kids are fucking annoying, I can say they're fucking annoying. And let's end on that, friends and lovers. We're going to finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference. OT.
Oh, I'd reference you.
Of course.
Coming out soon. Love Pen. And I'm just eager to see what they're going to do in the 3rd season. So, guys, watch you. You'd love it.
Nice. And I will reference the 2018 film Searching.
Nice.
Yeah, a little bit of digital, some more competent investigations. And I think it was a more satisfying end, but it has been a couple of years since we watched it.
And we love John Cho.
We love John Cho too. Screaming from the rooftop, friends and lovers. On Twitter and Instagram, we're at ForYourRefPod.
Write us an email at hello@f1podcast.com.
We're also on Evaluate Your Need to Have Your Own Children But Never Want to Adopt Podcast, if you like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.